Hey everyone, how you doing? Just thanks for being here on this insane day. I'm trying to get my little windows together. And I do, I just want to be honest, I was not sure if I should go on today with what is going on in the country at the moment, which is very disturbing and shocking to someone who lives here and maybe outside the world. But I have always been super appreciative of all of you that you like that we do this every week during COVID and all the crappy things that are going on. So I felt kind of like we should go on with this today. And Phil had agreed. And so let's do this and maybe have some fun. And I don't like to get political on here. I'm a very political person myself. But either way, this is not a good thing, all right? So I just want to say that. So, all right, let's talk about guitar and pedal boards and things. First of all, it feels weird just talking about this stuff right now. I got a new website. I'd love for you to check it out, Jeff-McErlain.com. I just put it together. So it's great because I can update it myself, which was usually the case. I was having to get other people to do it. So I've got some new stuff up there. We've got the jam tracks, and a lot of you guys have picked those up, and I really appreciate that. And all my TrueFire courses are on there as well. So yeah, if you want to help me out, if you like what you're seeing here, we can go over to the TrueFire site. Well, it's my site. But one thing people ask, if you click on my link and people say, it takes me to TrueFire, I thought it was going to help. I thought it goes through you. It does. If you click on the link on my website, the checkout is at TrueFire, and it registers for a sale from me. So there you go. So yeah, like I said, let's not talk any politics. I don't want to talk politics. I just had to address the situation. I don't want to discuss politics because look at where this stuff leads. So let's please not do that. So let's just talk about guitar and things like that. Okay, so let me get this picture going on here. There we go. So I want to talk about my pedal board. I hope there's enough light there. I have a little, it's always hard to get the light right where I don't look all washed out. Everybody see that okay? That looks pretty good, right? All right, this is my big board versus my small board. And the big board sits below my feet, you know, from when I'm doing recording. This is kind of what I brought out, generally speaking, when I was out with Robin, just so I'd have a lot of choices. And my travel board, which we can talk about a little later, this is that, and we could talk about that. And these things change depending on the gig and, you know, what's going on and what's required, you know, what kind of sounds I want to get. But let's talk about the one over here and how I like to run all these things, and we can ask questions and how you guys want to talk about any questions we have about order of pedals and things like that, and buffers and all that stuff. So we can nerd on that and not think about all this other stuff. Okay, so first thing I have going on, I'll just go through my signal chain. And I am running into the 2-rock, the Bloomfield drive, and I'm running it clean so I can, you know, demonstrate what the sound is. So this is the amp distortion, which I love. But, you know, you can't always use that if I don't have this amp, or if I can't get the amp sort of loud enough where I can dig in, then I always like setting up a pedal board that I can bring with me and it can handle all the sounds. So if I'm going on the road or if I go to a gig and I don't know what amp is there, usually we come across the house standard seems to be the Hot Rod DeVille, which is great. I like that because it's got a really good clean sound, really good platform. And also another quick question, guys. How's it sound? I don't have the headset on. I'm using the lav. Does it sound good? Just let me know. I rely on you guys to tell me how it goes. Okay, so here's my clean sound. Yeah, it's got a little bit of breakup. That's usually kind of coming from the aux, but let's just say it's completely clean, you know? All right. I'm running the PRS 594, which is pretty freaking great guitar. All right, so here's my clean sound. So let's just talk about the order of the effects, because I think it's pretty important. We're going into the Univibe first, and then I come out of the Univibe and go into the Octave Fuzz, and then into my Fuzz right here, which is a Vama Fuzz, and I'll go through all these things. And then into the Klon, and into the Shanks Overdrive, into the EQ, into the El Capistan Delay, and into the Supertrem, and then out into the boost. So, you know, these, yes, I know these are top-notch pedals, and, you know, and these are some of the companies are my friends, and some of them I've had forever, and you know, 30 years of buying things like this pedal. These are pretty old, some of these. It doesn't really matter, you know, you just have a good overdrive. Full Tone OCD is a great pedal, relatively inexpensive. It's an awesome guitar, awesome overdrive. So many great ones out there. Okay, so let's go through it. So the reason I like modulation before overdrive. So let's say I'm going to use my amp overdrive. I like that sound as opposed to putting modulation after an effect, after overdrive. They're two different sounds. It's up to you what sound you like better. I'm always hearing Band of Gypsies and Robin Trower and like Van Halen and Unchained, and that's when you're running the effect into an overdriven amplifier. I like the sound of that, but they're both equally cool is in terms of options. So that's one of those things that you really want to experiment. If you want to get like a more of an 80s sound, the chorus, if you're using a chorus, that would come usually after the overdrive. So it all depends on how you do it, you know, that's up to you. So you make those decisions. Okay, so right now, let's get totally nerdy today. I'll go through each pedal then. So Univibe's first. Okay, then I'm going to run it in. Now, you know, why didn't I put the Fuzz first? Well, the Fuzz sometimes sounds better in front of a Univibe, sometimes it doesn't. But then you get into some sort of buffers and things. I just like this right here. So I'm going to turn on my fuzz. I'll turn this off. So let's go through each one. All right, so I'll switch it over to Univibe. This is the Weaver Effects Violet Vibe, which is just great. So let's hear this. It gets super, you know, right? It gets super thick and vibey. So I can back that off a little bit. So I put that first. And then right? That's sort of that Hendrix thing. Thump, that's the word, right, Keith? Yeah, it's got the thump. So that's me going into the overdrive. Now, next up is the Octafuzz. Right? I definitely think, and I'll switch over to the Strat in a little bit, that Octafuzzes sound better with a Strat on the neck pickup. We'll get to that in a little bit. Now, then I run into the Vama fuzz. Now this is an interesting fuzz. And the reason why I like this fuzz a lot is for it to sound really fuzzy, it needs to be running more kind of into distorted. You know, with the gain all the way out, you know. It's in a single coil. Right, so there's that. So that's definitely the Hendrix sound right there, Trower and Hendrix. So if I go back, and why I really like this pedal a lot, there's a lot of fuzzes, they're really great ones. I have some of the Jesse Davey one, that's awesome. So if you look at my other pedal board videos, sometimes these things switch out depending on the gig. Now what I really like about this fuzz, and Matt Schofield hit me to this, was if I just kind of use it into a clean amp, that sounds like a Clapton-y sort of amp to me. So I'll turn it off so you can hear the sound, right? I kick that in. Right? It gets that kind of cool thing. I love that sound. And then if I want to get the overdrive, you know, I crank the volume. If I want to get that's into the front end of the amp, and it pushes the volume quite a bit, of course. But so that's the how I like to set this. So next in the chain is this thing. Nobody knows about this thing. That's my clean sound, right, with the clon on it. So, and I did this great video with Keith at 5 Watt World about the clon, and you guys know that. But right, so there's that. And then if I'm running that, now here's my overdrive. So let's kind of. Now I found this to be really ampy sounding. It rolls back. Really friendly to other pedals, other amps. It's right there. Right? That's really, I I like this pedal a lot. It's my favorite overdrive of the, I mean this in the best way possible, nondescript overdrive. And what I mean about that is it doesn't have this big hump like a Tube Screamer does. It's not a Dumble sort of pedal, which I really like those too. It just sounds like kind of Marshall-y to me. I don't know. Like, I don't want to say nondescript in a horrible way. It sounds like an amp I would like, as opposed to, that sounds like a Tube Screamer or something like that. Okay, so now, so how I run this is I almost, depending on the situation, I might leave my overdrive pedal on all the time and run it like I would a Marshall. Like, roll back my volume, just go to my clean tone, make sure I have some volume that'll come through more. Roll up my volume for that next level of gain, and then there's the solo sound, and I would dial that in, you know. Right, so that emulates as best I can. Different sound, but there's the 2 rock. That's a bit bright for the 2 rock on that situation, so I'd dial that back a bit. Right. Now this, one thing I learned from doing the thing with Keith, and Keith actually told me this, I didn't know, was that the Klon I've had it forever, and I was just, it always sounded good just where I found it. But Keith was telling me the magic spot on a Klon is like, I guess about right here, the overdrive circuit starts to kick in. I like it a lot of times just as a clean boost with the gain all the way up. So, this is the amp distortion. That's the amp clean, sorry. I could hit it with this, which would be a huge volume increase on a stage. So if I'm running the overdrive from the amp, there you go. So you kind of go through all these, and you just dial it into taste. And it's going to be different for each situation. All right, now I'm going to show you how I'm doing all this, like how I use it in a minute. I'm going to skip this, we'll come back to that. Most important pedal on my board is my tuner. As we can tell, notice how it's not on my headstock of my guitar. And then here, I have a favorite switch for a little heavier delay. And then that's back to what's set on the pedal. And then the full tone Super Trem, which is really great, this mini one. And it's got a tap tempo, which is awesome. And if I hold it, it goes half of the speed that it was at. So 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And pretty cool. But the tap tempo part is great. And then last in line is the Vertex Boost that serves a few different functions for me. One, I think it's just a great sounding boost pedal. Now it's a little overdrive, you know, because I'm pushing the amp kind of hard in the front. Right? So there's a few reasons why I have this on the board. One, like I said, I like to have the boost at the end. Then I can control all the volume coming out of the pedal board. And I also like having a boost before overdrive so I can use it as a gain stage situation. Or I can use both. All right. So let's just set up a little guitar sound and how I like to set a few things. All right, so I'm going to dial a little delay. I'm going to overdrive. I always like the sound of an overdrive pedal hitting the front end of an amp just a little bit, whether it's an expensive overdrive or not. And then a little bit of delay. So you hear that? like that on a lead, and it kind of comes over. Right? That's kind of cool. Now, if I'm playing rhythm guitar, though, like, I don't like that. It's too, you're hearing that bounce. So I'll turn this on and off, or I might even just set the mix a little lower. Right, so it kind of fills in some of that space, which is really nice, especially if you're playing with a trio, or if you're playing like a melodic solo. I like to have that little bit of pillow on there. All right, so then I have the preset. You know, I might change that depending on the gig, but I think I have some reverb on in the pedal because I usually run it into a dry amp. So if you're hearing double reverb going on. Okay, so Keith just asked, no reverb on the board. I kind of just almost oddly answered that. So no, given a situation, I will use delay over reverb for a long time. Also, usually the Fender Hot Rod DeVilles have reverb, which is pretty dealable. Or if I'm using the 2-Rock or the Princeton or something, I'll have some reverb. If I really, really want reverb, I'll throw it on. But the El Capistan has a secondary function which has got a little bit of reverb in it. So I might just turn a delay on super light, right, hidden reverb feature, and I dial that in to where I think it sounds good. So, but nothing to me beats the the reverb in the 2-Rock or a good Fender, Okay, so back to the straight sound. Now, let's talk about setting up a few things. So if I want to put on a delay and say like that Clapton-y thing, bring back that volume, and this is kind of a fun sound. Right? Now if I want to get a little more out of that, that sounds a little more fuzzy at that point, in a good way, that kind of sound, which is great. That kind of thing. So, all right, now the octafuzz. Let's do the Hendrixy thing for a sec, guys. We can start think about dialing in some of that. So we go for the Stratocaster. All right. So Univibe. Like a little, some more delay maybe. Yeah, there's definitely reverb on that. Right? Okay, so now I'm going to want more gain for solos. No. If I'm playing a Strat, I might actually have, there you go. I might push that up a little more. That's that thing to me right there. All right, so one thing I love, and we'll just kind of switch to this for a sec, about a Univibe. Now, some guys were asking, I'll answer these questions. This is fun, not watching the news. I do have a dry bell, which is my second choice And usually on my travel board, depending what the gig is, I'll have the dry bell on there, and we'll talk about some other options that I have. The dry bell is great. I have version 1, sounds amazing. I can't justify buying version 2 I hear it sounds a little cooler. I'm not gonna buy another one. And I have an old full tone one, which is cool. I think the dry bell sounds a little more chewy and thumpy than the dry bell. And the best one I have by far is the Violet Vibe. The downside, if there is a downside, is it's big. But that's why it sounds so good, because it's basically like a real Univibe, right? It's the full size and the full size components and everything, so it just sounds better. Okay, so one of my favorite things on a Univibe that people often overlook, except unless you're Mike Landau, is the vibrato. That's what I was using at the beginning. You have the intensity up, it can be a little seasick sounding. Turn it down a little bit. You can get almost like an organ. It's kind of like Schofield. John. Right? I like that sound a lot, and like I said, Michael Landau uses that a lot. Then if you do too much, it kind of loses it. So it's fine in the sweet spot. Now I also like it for you get some of those. You know, those great kind of right, those kind of sounds, a bit 80s in a good way. All right, so that's the Univibe, but that's the vibrato setting. So you guys who have a Univibe, most Univibes will have the vibrato switch. I love it. I use it a lot, actually. And I love the Univibe, almost to the point where I kind of had to go into a 12-step program. Because if you listen to my first record, which is available on my website, I used it a lot. Too much. So, it sounds so good. Okay, now the Octavia. You've got, kind of the way I'm running is I have the boost off, which is your kind of a fuzz, and I'll play that for you. Here's the fuzz. This one can be a fuzz. Great sounding fuzz pedal, by the way. All right, so I'll turn the boost down and the volume up. So I like that sound a lot, the Octafuzz. Sounds good on the bridge. But on the neck, and you roll back your volume a little bit, and if you turn the tone knob all the way down, kind of around the 12th fret area, it works elsewhere, but there's a song on my first record called Do You Remember, and it's kind of based on that sound. It starts off. It's actually drop D. Actually, it had the Univibe on it too, of course, because it's my first record. See, it's really thick, this one. Yeah. Yeah, it's a fun song. And I'm using that sound on it, the Univibe. And the Octavia. And the delay. That was too much delay for that. Okay. Now, if we're going to switch up guitars, and this is always important for me, if I go to something sort of different sounding, you know, I might have to bring back the overdrive. Now if we hear this, clapped anything? All right, so the question that I often get, let's kind of put a few things together before I get into that. So, pushing the amp a little harder than I want in the front. So, right? So those are kind of great guitar sounds, right? Right? So a lot of these things take a minute to figure out how to dial in the sounds. I feel like I can cover everything with this board, right? So the interesting pedal that I only bought because I saw, like a ton of us guitar players, we bought this because we saw the video with Tom Bukovac and Tim Pierce talking about this pedal. And my friend Jason Lockwood picked up one. He said, yeah, you should get it because it's great. And what is nice about it, say if I want to, I put it after distortion, and I can shape the distortion. Say I want a little more highs that I can't get out of the pedal. A little more mids. You know, a little more tube screamery. So one thing that Slash would do, he would use one of these in front of a Marshall and, you know, push up the mids and push up the volume. So let's try it in the tree rock. So even more maybe. You know, that's what Van Halen would do in his Marshalls as well. Sometimes he'd run an EQ in the front of it, a bit of a V, pushing things forward, and then cranking up the volume. So, you know, I go into depth on each of these pedals in one of my courses called the Guitar Effects Survival Guide. You can get it to my website in the courses section, where I go through each pedal. I talk about where it goes and how to dial it, a bunch of classic sounds and things. It's a little bit of an older course, but I used what I felt were like timeless sort of pedals. You know, nothing dated, everything was pretty analog. So it's a fun course, people really seem to dig it. And I talk about certain pedal chains and how to get, you know, David Gilmour kind of pedal sound, and you know, just kind of run things to run through it. So, I like this a lot, and this through my Marshall, like this setting. See, the T-Rock doesn't sound like that. Right? So. Right, so you can really dial this all in. So what I was saying earlier, if I don't really know, well, if I know what amp I'm using, I will still use this pedal board depending on the gig, depending if I feel like carrying it, depending on, you know, all those different things. How big the stage is, because there's some clubs you play in New York, if we ever start playing again, that the stage is really small. So I'll bring something smaller, and I won't bother bringing this because it's just kind of overkill. And it may not, it's kind of funny, I was talking to Corey Congilio, who's a great friend of mine, and people ask, well, why do you have so many pedals? And I don't think of myself as a pedal guy, which is kind of funny, I know. But as a professional, what this allows me to do is get all the different sounds that I want to get. So if I want to do a gig and I'm playing some of my 2-rock, which isn't particularly sound like my super lead, I can tweak it enough without buying another super lead sort of pedal by EQing it. Right? That's, you know, that's definitely more Marshall-y than if I were to turn it off. Even with a boost, you know. And if I just make it unity gain, it's still pushing the mids to make it sound a bit more like a different kind of amp. Or you're playing and you go, oh, this is a weird mid frequency I just cannot get out of my guitar. You can dial it out with the EQ. So I never thought, it's the pedal I never thought I needed. And now I have it, I love it. I don't use it a ton, but I love it in situations like this. Oh, I need it to make it a little more Marshall-y. All right, you just tweak that up. Okay, let me start fielding some questions. Oh yeah, real fast. The travel board, which changes sort of here and there with my overdrives and things like that. I always like some sort of clonny thing, which is cool. I like the sound of them. I like the way they work. This is the Gladio that I really like a lot. I know he's coming out with a single channel version, which I'm looking forward to because I favor the left side, which is the channel of the new one is going to be on the left side. And then I always like some sort of delay. I like the deep blue delay. That's really nice. Matt Schofield hipped me to that. Yeah, this is really, will cover the ground. So maybe if I didn't have this, the other pedal I really quite like a lot, which is in the closet, is the one that Matt Schofield made, was the Supreme, which has 2 sides, so I can gain stage it or go between the two, and that's really nice. I have the tuner, and I can fit in the dry bell here because this is a little bigger, because this is a 2-channel, you know, it narrows the things down a bit. With the dry bell, sorry, with the matte pedal, I don't necessarily stack them this way. I just might use that because it gets plenty of gain. I can stack one into the other and gain stage. All right, so maybe I'll do another one on the travel board. But if I had the Univibe on here and the Supreme and a delay, I could feel like I can cover a lot of the sounds that I get on this. It's just a bigger version of this. This is more options, but you can get pretty close. And one of the things about living in New York is you always try to get small and easy. So a lot of the stuff stays here unless it's a big gig that I have the space to use it in there. So, all right, so let me answer some questions. Once again, I don't think I have a course. All my courses I don't know if anything's on sale at the moment. I didn't get a course sale, but if you want to check out my stuff on my website, Jeff-McErlain.com, the new website, love to hear from you guys. And then feel free to shoot me a note if you want anywhere. There's a contact form there. Once again, I appreciate everybody being here, and I hope everybody had a great New Year. And okay, questions. Let's see what we have. Okay. I gotta go back up. All right. Are you using the Boss GE, that EQ, whatever that's called? Yeah, the GE7. This is the Boss one, but it's been modded by XTS Tone Solutions down in Nashville. Excuse me. They go on sale occasionally, first come, first serve. And it was definitely one of those, like I'm laying in bed and they announced it. I'm like, buy. I'm like, did I need to buy that? And I got it, and I'm happy I have it. It's been really useful. Do you usually go higher? This is messiness, but do you usually go higher gain when using the Univibe? No, not necessarily. I mean, the Univibe is just a beautiful sound in its own. You know, like Floyd, you know. You know, you just gotta. It's always tricky just getting the tempo right and the intensity. Right? It's a little fast for that. So, getting some delay. Yeah. Right. That kind of thing. So, yeah, the Univibe on its own is a clean sound. I love that sound. Yeah. And you can make it covers a lot of ground. It'll read like a phase shifter to me. It reads like just a nice swishy effect. So if I'm going on a gig and if I don't specifically need a tremolo, I can cover a tremolo-like sound where it reads to an audience kind of like a tremolo, but it's not. It would be the Univibe. So it covers a lot of ground. And like I said, the vibrato section on that does that as well. All right. I could talk about this stuff forever. Fuzz face clones are out there. The tone and bias controls sound like the real thing. I love the King Tone Mini Fuzz. It's too expensive. Any other similar for cheaper? I have the King Tone Mini Fuzz, and I think it's great. What I like about that pedal is it's a full-on fuzz, and it sounds amazing. What I really love about this one, which I think is out of production right now, is that it works great with humbuckers. And I play equally, maybe a little bit more Les Paul lately than I ever have. So, so this covers that Clapton-y thing. So I really fell in love with that sound to have that on my board, you know? That, you know, if you can't crank, that's a pedal. It's hard to get that sound unless you're kind of cranking a Marshall and, you know, getting that big woman tone thing, which it totally kills on that, right? So. Right? So I really love it for that. I found that most fuzzes don't do that. But the Dunlop fuzzes are great, man. The mini fuzzes, those are cool, like those little Hendrix mini fuzz or those little ones. I think they're great. You don't have to go crazy on a fuzz. I mean, unless you're a fuzz fanatic, which I'm not. I find them live can be very difficult to use. A lot of guys put fuzzes. Like what I've discovered, since I don't have the right fuzz here, but I might turn on a fuzz and then use the EQ pedal to push the mids a bit so it cuts through more. But I find sometimes with humbuckers, fuzzes are a bit tricky. So I have one on the chain because I like them, but if on my travel board I don't bring a fuzz because it's big pain for me. What is the volume of my amp? How loud is it in the room you're in? Oh, it's a TV volume. I've spoken about this before. You're not really hearing a cabinet. You're hearing the aux with a simulated cabinet going into my desktop. That's what you're hearing. I live in New York. I try to be really conscientious of my neighbors. And so I can play at a little bit of a volume here and there in the middle of the day, but I don't want to be that guy. So the aux has been really great. So everything you hear me doing is through the aux. It's a pretty good representation of what the amp sounds like. I'm only at like 2.5 on the amp, so it's not very loud anyway, but I just wanted to get as clean a sound out of the amp as I could get. So, sorry guys, I was reading. Looking for the questions. Hope everybody's doing all right. Sorry, guys. Don't want to skip anybody's questions. So Phil's got them highlighted. I know that. Going to the end. Do you have any specific models of, what specific model of the Vama Fuzz? It is the Shanks 4K. Yeah, it's the Shanks 4K. I've read about the Boss EQ being really noisy and hissy. Hey, Matt, what's going on? Yeah, the original one does, but Exits fix that. Right? So, I mean, listen. That's pretty amazingly good. So that was one of the things that they really fixed. They made it much more quiet. That's why it's worth it. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, they actually fixed, they kind of dialed in the EQ a little better, so it's a little more guitar-centric. It sounds really great. But the thing I love the most about it is it's really quiet, and the other ones are not quiet. You're always going to get some sort of hiss, especially if you put some high end, you know. Or not. So, yeah, all right, there you go. Let's put on some overdrive. Yeah, there's some. But seriously, that's nothing. That's like having an overdrive on. Okay, so that answers that question. So yeah, it's really good for that. Okay. Oh, I'm also powering it with the Strymon something. Ojai, maybe the bigger one, whatever one it is, the Strymon. Oh, Jason Lachlan, he's in. Yeah, you've been texting me during this. I'm glad you stopped in. Hey, Jason. Yeah, like I talked about earlier, Jason, you were the one that actually convinced me to get this because you said it was the pedal you didn't know you needed. So if Jason says it's good, it's good. Is your Strat early or late 64? I don't remember. I don't know. Doesn't really matter. I know there's certain things about my Strat that are supposed to be pretty cool. It is the blue wire on the pickups. And that is supposed to have been the 3-month period that they use the purple wire that is supposed to allegedly have a different sound than the gray wire on the gray bottom pickups. Who knows, but interestingly enough, it does sound very different than this 1964 Stratocaster. To be continued on that. So look for a video of me comparing the two coming up. So 2 64 Strats here. And they sound very different. They sound like Strats, but they sound really different. And they're only a few months apart. So I'm not exactly sure what the date is in this. I have it in a picture somewhere, but I don't so much care. But the interesting about the Fender stuff is like, you know, that you can see the paint, and that one's a little different. That one's got clay dots, mine doesn't. And, you know, I think they just grabbed whatever they had in the boxes in those years. Zuma, thank you. It is the Zuma. Right, I got all my backing tracks. I loaded up backing tracks. Thanks for all the guys who bought the backing tracks. I really appreciate that too. All right. Talking Clapton's tone, I get a pretty good representation using an MXR script distortion, especially the neck pickup into a Marshall. Yeah, you know, I don't want to say it's that difficult to tone to get, because it can be. But if you're playing it into like a Marshall and you know how to just kind of dial it in, it's not super hard to get because it's just almost like a fuzz, right? It gets kind of fuzzy, which I like a lot. Clay dots, non-clay dots would denote later in the year, I believe. Okay, cool. The only thing I find that makes me a little crazy on the Strat, and I discovered this on a gig with Jason Lachlan. I just got this, and I used it in my first gig with him. And it's dark at night in those gigs, and these clay dots, you cannot see them. So I was reading a chart in one of Jason's tunes, and I looked down, and my fret markers were gone. So it's a bit, it can be a bit funky if you're on a dark stage and you're reading something, and you know, I mean, if I'm not reading, I'm okay without seeing what fret I'm on, but I do like it as a guide, and those do kind of disappear, which is interesting. Things you find out on a gig the hard way. Yeah. All right. What's the weirdest pedal that? No, Jeff. What's the weirdest pedal that comes on and off me board? Okay, what's the weirdest pedal that comes on and off my board? I don't know, man. I guess it's the Fuzz, you know. I like it, but you know, you got to be careful with these things. If you use it too much, these things can lose their novelty, right? Or they sound novelty. So if you use the Fuzz once or twice a night, then you're cool. If you use it on a bunch of tunes, it's like, at least for me. Same with Univibe. If somebody leaves a Univibe on all night, I'm like, okay, I get it. You know what I mean? So that would be the weird. I don't have any really, really weird ones. I'm not big into, you know, crazy the guitar sounds like. I think Earl Farrier, go back to you mentioned about a switching system. I don't use one for a number of reasons. I tried on the road with Robin for a little bit using a switching thing with that Morningstar, and I don't know what was. I don't know. I'm an idiot with MIDI. I'm an idiot, and it finally got it hooked up, and my good friend talked me through it and all this stuff, I just kind of like. There's my pedal. I'm going to step on that pedal. I like the spontaneity of it. I guess if I would worked it out and had the time, like I remember talking to, I was in Italy with Josh and Ariel, and those guys have their Schmidt-Array pedal boards with the MIDI switching and the whole thing like that. And I'm sitting there and they're talking about it. I'm kind of like just drooling out of the corner of my mouth. I'm like, I don't know. I just kind of, me just step on pedals. And on that gig, if you watch, it was Umbria Blues Festival. I'm just basically using the Shanks, the KTR, and the El Capistan. That's all I had. Oh, and the dry bell. That was it. Because I'm really comfortable with that. I feel like I could just do a gig with that. And part of me feels like if I can't do my music with a very simple pedal board, there's something going on. And I'm not writing stuff like The Edge, where it's based around effects. I don't poo-poo any of that stuff. It's just the way I do things. All right. Well, it has been an hour, right? I wasn't sure how many people would be showing up today with lunacy. What would be a good substitute for a Klon? Great question. Oh man, there's so many. If you want to go really inexpensive, the Soul Food by Electro-Harmonix is quite good. And little known fact, there's a friend of mine and Jason's named John Skibick who works with Electro-Harmonix, and they designed that Soul Food after his Klon. So they A-B'd that one. So somewhere in the $200 range, I would 100%, I don't have mine with me right now, I would 100%, I love the Mythos Molnir. That is a great pedal. That is super awesome. It has the buffer in it. I like, let's talk about buffers for a second. I like having the buffer in the Klon circuit. If I'm not mistaken, the Archer doesn't have the buffer. I don't know, but I like having a buffer. Right, so the Mythos, so the Raya too, yep, those are great too. I think the Mythos is probably pre-COVID was easy to get. I think Zach's back ordered. Great guy too. No Korg Miku, I don't know what that is. All right. Are you planning doing a Hendrix-themed live feed in the future? Red House or something from the band and Gypsies would make a great feature. Yeah, you know, that's actually a really good idea. I hadn't thought about that. Sure, I love talking about Hendrix. My knowledge of Hendrix is fairly, I don't want to say surface, you know what I'm saying. I listen to him a lot. I know a lot of, well, I guess it's not surface. I got really into him for a while. Yeah, sure. He's like one of those guys that like, I'm like, oh yeah, no, I was really influenced by Hendrix. I forgot about that. In my recent years, I've pulled away from it because it was pulling me towards Strats, Univibes, Octavias and things. And then it sounded like a guy who listened to too much Hendrix and Robin Trower, I think at one point, personally. As I listened back to the record from 12 years ago, which I'm still very proud of, but I listen to it and I go, you know, I wasn't there yet in terms, the sound was somebody else's, if that makes sense. And it's a great sound. It's so easy to get sucked into that sound, right? I mean, it sounds so amazing. A Strat with a Univibe and an Octavia, it just sounds freaking amazing. So the Archer does have a boost. Oh, I have a buffer. Okay, let's talk about the buffers. Okay, a few questions, great. Okay, these are good questions. Where do I put the buffer? It's really important. I don't ever put a buffer before a fuzz because it makes it sound weird. And if I have a wah pedal, which I have one on the floor, that becomes a bit weird. If it's a true bypass wah, then I don't care, but I don't put the fuzz and the wah together because that sounds weird. Hendrix did that and it sounded cool, but it can sound a little weird. So if I use my wah pedal, which is over here, which a little shout out again to my favorite wah that I've gotten is the Weaver Effects, same guy who makes this. You can contact him on Instagram, Weaver Effects. This is a great sounding wah. I love this thing. And I think I've always had problems with wahs, and this is a really musical sounding one. Wah is one of those things I really need to bring it on a gig because it's kind of heavy. And if I really want to use it, I'll bring it. But they're kind of heavy. You know, if I'm going to a gig and I got to carry everything together like we do in New York, a wah is the first thing to be jettisoned. And I hate the mini wahs. They're the ones that are smaller. They feel weird on my foot. And it's all wrong. Okay, so the question, what was the buffer? Okay, so right. No buffer, no buffer, no buffer, buffer. And so if you notice, I have the fuzz before anything that's buffered. Some people would say you should have your fuzz first. Yeah, whatever. I can put the fuzz first. And to be honest, some of this came out to be a little bit like Tetris, though. I couldn't figure out a way to put this over here and then have the Univibe positioned right. You know what I'm saying? You guys have built pedal boards. You're like, damn, I just need an inch more. I have the Strymon Volante, which I love, but I can't fit it. It's either the Violet Vibe or the Volante, and so I like the sound of the Univibe. I get more use out of that than more vibe, like more delay sounds, though it's a great sounding pedal. So it kind of goes back and forth and all that. So the buffer comes in here, and I run it into here, which is fine. This has got a buffer, so yeah, I got 2 buffers in a row, blah, blah, blah. This is why people say you should get like a switching system, but you know. You can't hear a fucking difference. I mean, maybe if you microscope it back and forth, but as long as your signal feels good and everything sounds kind of good, it's fine. And if the second the drummer hits a cymbal, all those little things just go out the window. And if you're like, oh, I'm losing a little bit of high end, you just turn it up in your amp a little bit. The other thing I do like is I put the buffer at the end of the chain as well with a little bit of the boost. The boost is nice because if I just want to boost the overall sound of everything just a little bit, that's really cool. Because sometimes you're using a fuzz or something, it might, you know, if you're falling out of the mix, you just hit this. Especially if you're running into a clean amp, so it'll just boost your overall volume. Somebody asked where I put the tremolo. I always put the tremolo after any time-based a reverb or a delay. I put tremolo after that. And somebody hit me to that, I forget who it was. I had it the other way around. They're like, no, you never do that. And so then I tried it the other way, and I agree, it sounds better that way. This is all about experimentation, but there is the thing that I always run into the limitation of how much space I have on my board and how much I'm willing to carry. Yeah, like a switching thing would be cool. I would just, you know, a lot of these guys like Josh and this guy, they've really worked through it, and I know it sounds totally ridiculous because I guess if you memorize the order of how this is this effect or this is this and that, and it takes everything out of the chain, that's cool. But I just kind of like, I want to turn that on, and I turn that on, and I don't know, it's kind of the way I work. So somebody asked, like, if I only had 3 pedals, right? Well, it would be a tuner, most important, silent tuner. So apart from the tuner, a good overdrive, you always need a good overdrive, because a good one like this, here's a little kind of fun secret. If you use your ears, slow. Nope. Yeah, they're looking. Okay, now watch. You can start to kind of, you know, if you really poke around with certain pedals, you can emulate other sounds so I can, get a clonish sound out of this. Now I can't get this overdrive sound out of that. It's not what it's designed for, but if you kind of experiment, you might find some of your pedals that you choose have lots of different usages. And I think that's really important to spend the time to just screw around and see what you get. So what I mean by a good overdrive pedal is this one. Like I said, the Supreme is a great sounding overdrive pedal. I love that. Happy with that one all the time as well. And what I just do is I set this like an amplifier, and I want usually a boost pedal in front, so I have the option of getting a little higher gain, which I like to do sometimes. And I usually like some sort of delay with modulation on it. I like that sound. Like the El Cap's got a little bit of that wow and flutter thing, and I like that sound. I don't really like a crisp digital delay sound. I like a warmer, almost like pillowy thing. And okay, Jason, you found the buffers and the exits EQ don't always get along. I haven't encountered that yet. And yeah, it's bizarro. Some pedals, you're like, why isn't this working? And just the way they kind of speak to each other or something like that, it's difficult. Let's see. Buffers drive up the wall. They're difficult, but you have to figure out where to put it. You know what I mean? Like, where in your chain is it going to go? Because it can be terrible. Like, it can ruin your sound too if you get too many buffers. So I would I like one at the end, especially if you're running a number of cables. I think a buffer can make a great improvement in your tone. They add a lot of high end back. A lot of punch to your sound. If everything sounds a little dead, plug in a buffer. Now, Jason Lachlan brought over that one from 29 pedals. It's a little bigger. That was an amazing buffer. It sounded great. You want to find one that sounds really good. So, okay. What do we have here? Zita, she's saying, quit using the looper and a switcher. Yep, this was not really my thing. I think if I were doing the same songs every night and in a gig where it was a really rehearsed thing, maybe I would do that. If I had to switch a few different things, I would do that for sure. But the kind of music I play, I just dial it in. Certain nights when you're trying to turn off a few things at once, it would be nice to step on one foot switch, but, uptown problems. Okay. Why not the tuner first? It doesn't matter. There's a few things. One, fitting it. Middle of the game of Tetris here. If I put it first, it'd be up over there. It's smaller. This is like, so these were things how I could fit it, get my foot to hit it right. So, yeah, in a perfect world, I would maybe put it in the lower right-hand corner, like in first, but then I have to run a cable up there, then everything. This is just the best way everything mapped out. And I don't think it doesn't affect the tone in any way. Somebody asked what the cables are. They are the, what are they? EBS, and they're the ones that are flat. And it's great because you can stick other pedals next to each other and really get stuff tight together. So that's the EBS pedals are really cool. Or the EBS cables. And get them at Sweetwater, something like that. That's where I got mine. Have I ever used multi-effects units? No, I don't like them. I have used them, but I don't care for them. Because I like, it's the programming aspect of these things. So I just like having the stuff where it is. I turn the knob. I don't like having to go through windows or menus. They're really cool. I like multi-effects like the M9 that Line 6 made, because you just treat it as 3 different pedals, and if you just remember how you set it. But for me, I'm, can you review the big PP pedal? Is that a joke? Is that a troll? It's pretty funny. I think you got trolled there, Phil. I think. I've never even heard of it. Is that true? If it's a great name, if not, it's funny. Right, you're smiling. Very good. Pretty funny. Got by Phil. What about cables? You know, I got this great cable from a good friend of mine named Phil Mingan. Synsonoid, which is really great sounding cable. Really like that. Thank you, Phil. Awesome. And I've just been using the D'Addario Planet Waves because I have an endorsement with them, and they're really good. And they're reasonably priced, and they're really well built. And I've only had one fail on me after a few years, and that's totally cool. I really like this a lot. I think these are great cables, and they're very reasonably priced. So the Planet Waves cables I think are really good. And if you want to go nuts, you can do the Synsonoid that Phil sent me. Now Phil has posted he's got his new deluxe reverb hand wired. I think Phil put a nice link to that, so you can check out Phil checking out his new amp deluxe reverb hand wired, which is super cool. No switcher, right? Yes. No switcher, still no switcher. The Greer Lightspeed is awesome. They're really similar. You know what it was? This actually got some more gain. I like the Lightspeed a lot. I think it's a great pedal, really great, really transparent. This one just got more. It's got more, and you know, more is more. Right? So I like this one because I can really crank it and get some more metally sort of sounds. All right. So, oh, you got timed out. All right. Enough, you know. So you had fun. Don't be an asshat. All right. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, the power supply. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, everybody, it's Strymon Zuma, or the hell is it? Oh, Zuma. Yeah, the Strymon Zuma. That's what I've got going on there. Yeah, so guys, you know, thanks so much for joining me on this crazy day. And like I said, thanks for being here. I wasn't sure I wanted to come on. I'm glad we did. I hope everybody's doing okay and doing well. Best thoughts on best pizza in New York. John's Pizzeria on Bleecker is great. Grimaldi's on... Where's Grimaldi's? No, is it Grimaldi's I'm thinking? No, Arturo's on Houston is awesome. Those are two of my favorites. Best coffee in my neighborhood. Bauhaus Coffee, it's 2 blocks away, and great owners, I love them. My favorite coffee at the moment is Partners Coffee, and they're out of here in Brooklyn, and they are awesome. Partners Coffee in Brooklyn. Do you program your backing tracks? Some of them, and some of them are actual bands. So the ones that are for sale on my through my website and on Bandcamp, that's with the band. So I appreciate everyone being here today. It's fun having you here. I'm glad we went online and did this. I'll see everybody next week. And, you know, hey, check out my new website. It's a ton of fun. Somebody was asking about a subscription site. Excuse me. I want to get to that. It's coming down the line. There's lots of things that I'm getting through. And I do have a Brett Papa course coming out very soon. It's a little hold up on my part, just not having my shit together. Should be out pretty soon. I'm looking forward to that. I just wanted to be good and super happy with it. All right, guys, thanks so much for hanging, and I will see you next week at the same time. And thanks.